Hello students, this is Priya from Alpha International CBSE School, Bahu. We welcome you to this e-learning session where we all work together to develop the capacity to become independent lifelong learners and to equip you with the skills and knowledge to pursue your goals. Children, today we are going to discuss chapter 1, the rise of nationalism in Europe in history, social studies. In this chapter, let us try to understand how the feeling of nationalism arose in Europe, and that feeling of nationalism in Europe was one of the leading grounds for the development of nationalism, where in the regions of Indochina and in the neighboring regions of India and some other nations also. So let us go into the lesson and see what we are going to come across. The rise of nationalism in Europe. The rise of nationalism in Europe initiated with the spring of nations in 1848. According to Leon Baradit, nationalism calls on people to identify with the interest of their national group and to support the creation of a state, a nation state to support those interests. Rule by monarchies and foreign control of territory was replaced by self-determination and newly formed national governments. Some countries, such as Germany and Italy, were formed by uniting various regional states with a common national identity. Others, such as Greece, Serbia, Poland, Romania, and Bulgaria, were formed by uprising against the Ottoman Empire and the Russian Empire. Here, the French Revolution encouraged people in Europe about the idea of nationalism. Nationalism began to emerge in the 19th century when people in Europe demanded freedom from governing empires, including the Austrian, the Ottoman Empire, and so on. These changes were the arrival of the nations in place of the dynasty empires of Europe. The unification of Germany and Italy were part of the nationalism that emerged in the 19th century. Children, today we are living in a democratic nation and believe in nationalism, right? But do we know the meaning of nationalism? Do we know what is a nationalism? What is mean by nationalism? And from where did this concept come into existence? Who found the nationalism? From where these words nationalism, everything came? And how it is related to Europe, and what was the dream of the Europeans? All these we will be answered in this chapter. By the end of the lesson, we will come to know the answers for all these questions, like what is a nationalism, how it came, and what is the meaning of the nationalism, where did the concept come from, and how it is related to the Europe and Europeans. So concentrate on your lesson, children, while I am teaching. And to begin with, we should first discuss the painting made by Frederick Sorio in 1848. You can see a painting, right? A print in your textbook, first page itself, can you see? So, we are going to discuss regarding that print. And this painting was made by Frederick Sorio in 1848. Underline that phrase, Frederick Sorio in 1848. Underline that one. The French artist had prepared 4 prints. How many prints? 4 prints. Visualizing his dream, imagining his dream. Visualizing means imagining his dream of a world made up of democratic and social republic. And the painting This painting which we are going to discuss is one of the 4 prints made by Sorio. He made 4 prints and this is the first print which we are going to discuss now. Children, when you look into this print, just notice that what are all there. This painting shows, in this print we can see men and women from different ages. There are men and women of all ages and social groups marching in a long queue. They are going in a long queue. Marching means walking in a long queue and giving honor to the Statue of Liberty. Honor to the Statue of Liberty means what? Respecting. They are showing their respect towards the Statue of Liberty. The painting describes the painting is describing about the Statue of Liberty as a female figure. The Statue of Liberty is what? A female figure having torch of enlightenment in one hand. Torch of enlightenment in one hand and charter of man's light. Charter of man's right in other hand. Okay. The statue is a female figure. The statue is a female figure because why? Why they have choose a female figure as a statue? Because liberty was defined as a female figure by various French artists. All those French artists used to describe their views on liberty through the female figure. That is why the Statue of Liberty is also in the form of female figure. And he had shown shattered remains of absoluteness institutions on the ground. Absolutist means a form of rule or a form or like government, a form of rule or government where the power is concentrated in the hands of one person. That is the meaning of absolutist. Absolutist means what? It is a form of rule, some principles from the government where the power is controlled in the hands of a single individual. In his vision, utopian vision means vision of an ideal society that is unlikely to actually exist. He has described a group of people from different nations walking together towards Statue of Liberty. And the distinction can be easily felt as one can see people with different flags and different types of costumes also worn by them. Okay. Now, ways past the Statue of Liberty are the United States and Switzerland, which were already nation states by then. Then comes France. Already United States and Switzerland, they got the liberty. Then comes France with its tricolor flag and she is followed by Germany. You can see the flags also in the people's hand in that painting. If you notice, you can see the flags of different nations. You can see United States and Switzerland. Then comes France with the tricolor. The three-color flag is a France, and the Germany is following the France. Germany was not only a nation when this painting was made, but as it was a dream of Sorio. So he painted various countries that were part of his dream, paintings such as Austria, two Sicilies, Lombardy, Poland, England, Ireland, Hungary and Russia. He has also painted Christ, saints and angels who are gazing the scene from heavens. You can see the angels and everything in the sky like as if they are looking at the scene. Okay. This chapter will deal with various issues that were visualized. Visualized means what? Imagined by Sorio in his painting. And during the 19th century, nationalism grew as a strong force that brought various political changes in Europe. And the final result of these changes was the coming up of the nation state in place of the multinational dynastic empires of Europe. So that is what is the meaning of the rise of nationalism in Europe. The French Revolution and the idea of the nation. So the French Revolution and the idea of the nation. So the key points in this revolution and the idea of the nation were: France was a full-fledged territorial state in 1789 under the rule of an absolute monarch. The political and constitutional changes that came in the wake of the French Revolution led to the transfer of sovereignty to the monarchy of the body of French citizens. The revolution proclaimed that it was the people who would henceforth constitute the nation and shape of its destiny. Here are the steps taken by French revolutionaries. A centralized administrative system was put in place, and it formulated uniform laws for all citizens within its territory. Second point, internal customs, duties and dues were abolished and a uniform system of weights and measures were adopted. Number third point, regional dialects were discouraged and French as it was spoken. Regional dialects were discouraged and French as it was spoken and written in Paris became the common language of the nation. When the news of the events in France reached the different cities of Europe, students and other members of the educated middle classes began seeing up Jacobin clubs. Their activities and campaigns prepared the way for the French armies, which moved into Holland, Belgium, Switzerland and much of Italy in the 1790s. With the outbreak of revolutionary wars, the French armies began to carry the idea of nationalism abroad. So these are the steps taken by the French revolutions and the idea of the nation. Children, it was France. It was France when? It was France from where the concept of nationalism came into existence for the first time. In the France only first time the concept of nationalism came out with the French Revolution in 1789. And before this, France was a territorial state. This means territorial state means that is, it was ruled by an absolute monarchy. The word absolute means a rule where the whole power is concentrated in the hands of a ruler, of a monarch. It means the rules were the whole power of the country were concentrated only in the hands of some individuals. And the French Revolution brought the concept of nation and nationalism in France. The main aim was to form a nation. What is the main aim for them? To form a nation where there will be a united community enjoying equal rights under a constitution. They felt that there should not be any superiority complex and inferiority complex between the people. There should not be any imbalanced life between the people. Nobody should look on and look under within the people. So they felt it as uncomfortable as it is not a justice. They tried to form a community. They want to form a nation. So there will be a united community where they can enjoy the equal rights under some rules and regulations. For this, the French revolutionaries introduced various measures and practices that could create a sense of collective identity among the French citizens. It means what? The French Revolution introduced what? Like various practices, various methods. They have introduced so many types of practices. Like they have experimented some practices which could be done that could create a sense of collective identity among the French city, which shows the unity and the equal rights among the people. Some of the measures taken by the revolutionaries are the royal flag. The royal flag was placed by a new tricolor flag. Before that, they don't have any some such things. The first thing was they planned a royal flag with a tricolor. A tricolor flag was placed. The Estates General was elected by the body of active citizens and renamed the National Assembly. They started electing people within themselves. How? By election. Election has done with the help of active citizens. The people of the country, they started electing their own general estates. Then new hymns were composed, oaths were taken, and martyrs commemorated, all in the name of the nation. So when they had designed their flag, elected their leaders, now they have concentrated in the oath. Oath means like promises, as we are doing like pledge, national anthem, we all are having for our Indian flag, right? The same way they started creating for them. A centralized administrative system was put in a place. So that is the centralized administrative system is where they will be making all the rules and regulations into the practice. They just start from there. Uniform laws for all citizens were formulated. The rules and regulations should be uniform, equal to all the citizens. Internal customs duties and dues were abolished. They had totally abolished those internal customs and duties. Uniform system of weights and measures were adopted. So when they are buying things and whatever it may be, the weights and measures are important, right, for a human source. So uniform system also has been adopted and maintained. French was considered as the common language of the nation. Every nation will have a common language. So what is our national language? We are saying that we have Hindi as a national language. But every state differs, right? The same way the French was considered as the common language of the nation. And not only this, the French revolutionaries made it their mission to spread the idea of nationalism. Why? Because to help Europeans liberate themselves from dictatorship. So they want to help Europeans liberate. To what? To they want to help themselves liberate themselves from dictatorship. So this is what the French Revolution means. And then setting up of Jacobin clubs. We have discussed it at the beginning, right? Setting up of Jacobin clubs. Let us see what is Jacobin clubs. Soon the news about French Revolution spread. When the news about French Revolution spread to various cities of the Europe, students and other members of educated middle classes began setting up Jacobin clubs. Jacobins means they were those revolutionaries who aimed to establish a republic in their country by ending the king's rule. These Jacobins means were what? They were one of the revolutionaries. They are the revolutionaries who always aim to establish a republic in their country. Not only that particular individuals' rules and regulations, right? The activities and campaigns of these clubs allowed the French armies to move into Holland, Belgium, Switzerland and much of Italy in 1790s. Okay. Now let us talk about the rule of Napoleon 1804 to 1815. Who is Napoleon first? I think everybody have an idea. You might have come across the name Napoleon, right? Yes. Napoleon was a French statesman. Who is Napoleon? He was a French statesman and military leader. One of the leader in the military who came to power in France. Here Napoleon was a French military leader and he was in the power. He led many successful campaigns during French Revolutionary Wars and was able to conquer vast parts of Europe. He was a smart person, talented person. He led many successful campaigns which were during French Revolutionary. He struggled there in the Revolutionary Wars. He is the main person who struggled in those Revolutionary Wars and he was able to conquer vast parts of Europe. He introduced many reforms in the areas under his control. What are those reforms? Let us see. Napoleon, after coming into the power, had destroyed democracy in France. What did he do? First of all, he destroyed the democracy in France. But in an administrative field, he had incorporated revolutionary principles in order to make the whole system more logical and efficient. In order to make it efficient, in order to make it easy principle, he involved some principles also in order to make the whole system more efficient. So one of the more important reforms introduced by him was the introduction of civil code. What is the main reform? He introduced many reforms. Among them, the first reform what? Introduction of civil code of 1804, or it's also known as it was introduced by him. It is named as Napoleonic Code. What is it? Napoleonic Code. Civil Code of 1804 or Napoleonic Code. And let us see what are the features of this code. The reform, what I said, the reform's name is Napoleonic Code, and that Napoleonic Code, let us see what are the features in that. Equality before the law was established. Once we are deciding to fix a law for the public, once it was established, before that equality should be maintained. Second one is feudal system was abolished. Third one, right to property was given. Fourth one, abolished all privileges based on birth. Number 5, serfdom and manorial dues were abolished. Transport and communication system were improved. So these are the features of that Napoleonic Code. This code was introduced in Dutch Republic, where it was introduced. First he introduced in Dutch Republic, Switzerland, Italy and Germany. In those 4 countries he had introduced all those things. And then peasants, artisans, workers and new businessmen were happy with the newfound freedom. Yes, definitely they will be happy, right? The same way all those business people, workmen, everybody were happy with that. The uniform laws, standardized weights and measures and all the common national currency, main thing, the currency, national currency were welcomed by the businessman and small scale goods, small scale business people also, as this had facilitated the movement and exchange of goods and capital from one region to another. So because of this exchange of goods from here to there, all the business people, workmen and these small goods producers, everybody were happy because of this, all these measures, weights and those national currencies, uniform laws were maintained. People are very comfortable with these laws, right? In the beginning, Everything seemed good. French armies were welcomed in many places such as Holland, Switzerland, Brussels, and then Mainz, Milan, and then Warsaw. But soon they turned hostile towards them as the French armies were oppressing them. They all seemed good because they were welcoming them gladly. The nations like what? Holland, Switzerland, Brussels, Milan, Mainz, and Warsaw. But then they realized that these armies, the people of these French armies, were starting oppressing them. There were some other reasons also behind their dislike of French armies. What are those some other reasons? Not only because of the oppression, they have some other problems also, like increase in taxation, censorship. They started increasing taxation and censorship, and forced enlistment of common people to the French army in order to fulfill the aim of conquering the rest of Europe, etc. Look, all the people will not be willing to join in the army or fight, right? Some will be having some personal interest. But what these French army people did means they want to conquer, they want to establish the rest of the Europe also. They want to establish their, conquer everything in the rest of Europe. And for that sake, as they have lackage of people, shortage of people, they started forcing the ordinary people also, common people who are not willing, they started forcing them to join in the French army. Next, the making of nationalism in Europe. Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies, and cantons whose rulers had their autonomous territories. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. The Habsburg Empire ruled over Austria-Hungary. In Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, while the other half of them spoke a variety of dialects. Besides these three dominant groups, they also lived within the boundaries of the empire. The only tie binding these diverse groups together was a common allegiance to the emperor. So, children, uh, let us know, before going into the explanation, let us know. First we have to look into the making of nationalism in Europe. Before going into the detailed description, let us first look into the making of nationalism in Europe. And before that, we need to understand the composition of Europe that was divided into the various kingdoms. So we have to first know how the Europe was divided, and we have to note means we have to understand the composition of Europe, how it was divided into various kingdoms. Like the duchies and cantons. Duchies and cantons were ruled by those rulers who had their autonomous territories. And moreover, there were people who spoke different languages. Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies within the territories of which lived diverse people. Okay. And Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies, and cantons. And they ruled by different rulers. So, and as we see here, Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms and duchies and cantons, and they were also ruled by different rulers. And now the Eastern and Central Europe was under autocratic kingdom, means within the territories of which lived diverse people. It means these people have diverse people, in the sense these people will not have anything in common. Everything will be deferred. There will be so much of complications between them. Nothing will be common between the people who live there. That is what we call as diverse people, the territories of which live diverse people. They did not share any collective identity or common culture. Here the phrase collective identity or a common culture means they used to have different languages and they have different ethnic groups. They have different cultures, different languages, different clothing, different way of giving and taking respect. Everything will differ. That is why we are calling that they will not have, like, they don't have a collective identity or a common culture. For example, the Habsburg Empire that had its rule over Austria-Hungary was composed of different regions and people. It includes Alpine regions, Tyrol, Austria, Sudetenland and Bohemia. Then, in these areas, the aristocrats were German speaking. What are the people in those areas speaking? They speak German. Whereas, it also include Lombardy and Venetia where people spoke Italy. So, the people in the Lombardy and Venetia, what they will speak? They spoke in Italian. On the other hand, in Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar. This is another variety of language. So, while the other half spoke a variety of dialects. In Galicia, the aristocrats spoke Polish. Look, children, when you come across all those things, what I am teaching now, you can just note down how many languages are there, like German, Italian, Magyar, Polish, all these languages. These are the different variety of languages. Apart from excluding this, another variety of dialects were also spoken by those people in those country. Okay. And then even the peasants that lived in these areas were from different ethnic groups. For example, there were Bohemians and Slovaks in the north, Slovenes in Carniola, and then Croats in the south, Romans to the east. So now we can easily understand that there were nothing common among these groups. Yeah, children. So the only common thing what they had is they used their loyalty towards their common emperor. Though they have a variety of languages, different types of languages, variety of ethical groups, and they differ in their culture and they differ in their what is it? Whatever give and take policies, everything differs. But the only one common thing among all those people were they show their loyalty. They will be true because there is only one common emperor for all these people. So the only common thing what is they show their loyalty, truthness towards their common emperor. That is what we said, common allegiance to the emperor means showing their loyalty to the emperor. So therefore, these are the things which we want to discuss in the making of nationalism in Europe. So children, with this, let us end this session today because we have come across so many names and years. Okay. So that I will give you time. Let us end this session with this. After this lesson, try to read this lesson continuously. Practice reading these vocabularies and note it down which you feel that you will forget. These names like Carniola, Croats, Romans, and the languages like Polish and the emperor's names, everything whichever. You just read it and note it down in a rough note and practice those words and the years. Then only you will not forget those years and the names. And let us end this session with the making of nationalism and Europe. And tomorrow in the sense in the next session, we will go into the detailed description of the making of nationalism in Europe. What is it? We will discuss in detail about the making of nationalism in Europe, because after this only, when we have discussed all this, a question arises here first. What is that question? Like, we are going to discuss what in the next session? like how the idea of nationalism first arose in these parts. But everything was going smoothly. We will have a doubt. Everything is going smooth and everything was perfect. It feels like that, right? But we have to see how how the how the nationalism, how the idea of nationalism arose in these parts. And then we have to understand. Now I think we all understood how the society and these places were divided now. As we had discussed the last para, we had known the different types of languages and different types of ethics. Everything differs between the people, nothing is common, right? But what were the issues faced by the common people? There are these two questions, like how the idea, number one is how the idea of nationalism arose in these parts, and the second one is what were the issues faced by the common people. So for these questions we will find the answers in the next session. And meanwhile children, I will send you an activity and I will explain the activity how you have to do it. Okay. So with this let us end this session, and then please take note down the activity. Activity should be in the A4 sheet and only the activity should be posted in the WhatsApp group. Okay children. So then these are the activity questions which I have taken from the today's concept. It means these 5 questions were taken from the concepts which I have taught you today. So you can go through the lesson, read the lesson, or else you can just read out the slides, PPT slides which I have given, because this is a concise part of the lesson which was taken from the textbook. So you have both options. You can go through the PPT or else you can go through the textbook also. Read it, find the answers and then write it in the A4 sheet with the question and answer. Presentation is a must. Capital letters, uppercase and lowercase, usage of uppercase and lowercase is a must. Space between the words, margins, headings, underlining the headings. So everything is important, and the main thing is you have to mention your name once you are posting your written snap in the WhatsApp group. So whatever you are writing, please understand the handwriting, spelling mistakes, punctuations, everything comes under the presentation skills. So be cautious and be safe during this lockdown. Okay children, don't go out, roam anywhere, be safe. I think maximum we will be staying only 1 month at home. So I am very eager to meet you all. I want to see all your faces and teach you directly. Okay children, so all the best, and this is Priya signing off from Alpha International.